Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Payne and Drain Show, checking in between preseason week 0 and preseason week 1, in between the Lions' first and second preseason games, since they played in the Hall of Fame game, which was, I hope nobody watched that entire thing because that was really tough to watch. So I don't know about you, Alex, but every year the Hall of Fame game's the one game that it's like, oh, football's back. And then you realize, no, it's bad.
Yeah, I don't normally watch the Hall of Fame game that much. Like sometimes I catch a minute of it, flip over, but as you know, I'm usually like it's too early for football. And but this year was by far the most of the Hall of Fame game I'd ever watched, and that was not a good experience. So kind of validates my position that it's too early for football because it looked like, certainly from the Lions side, a team that was just barely into training camp having to try and play a football game, and it was very sloppy.
Yeah, football in July should never be a thing. But welcome into the Payne and Drain Show. My name is Zach Payne. With me is Alex Drain. You can find us on Twitter. I'm at ZachPayne41, Alex at Alex_Drain. And you can find the Payne and Drain Show wherever you get your podcasts, and on Twitter at Payne and Drain as well. And you can find us on YouTube at the Payne and Drain Show as well. So in this episode, last week was a full training camp preview. This time we're kind of just checking in on what's been happening at training camp so far. So for those of you that were happy that we put out a nearly 2-hour episode, don't hold your breath this time around because much less to talk about as we're just kind of checking in. But to start off with, we do have some injury news that we have to catch up on. This Dan Campbell the other day announcing that rookie safety Dan Jackson is going to be out for the year with a leg injury that he suffered on, I believe it was Sunday. And yeah, so the safety depth that we talked about in our camp preview that is already looking pretty shaky gets a little bit thinner.
Yeah, it didn't sound like he was having a great camp though, and as I said previously, I didn't want to rely on a seventh round rookie in any particular way. So it's a bummer for him, but I don't think it majorly changes the picture, at least for the Lions this season. But it puts more pressure on Lauren Strickland, for example, and obviously more focus on Avonte Maddox, although he was pretty clearly in line to be the number 3 safety before this injury. And that's in and of itself an interesting talking point because we kind of went into camp thinking Maddox was more of a corner or a nickel, but it sure sounds like he is a safety and by all accounts is having a decent camp. So that's something at least.
Yeah, and the other factor is special teams. We know that Dan Jackson is a very good gunner. Based on the Hall of Fame game, maybe Tesla or Lovett, if he makes the team, can fill that role. For those, a lot of people that are diehard Lions fans, you would have seen the rep of Tesla at gunner in the Hall of Fame game where he's Burns off the edge, and he had the returner lined up for a big hit if it wasn't for the fair catch. So, I mean, the Lions can find gunners. That's not as big of a deal. I am concerned about the safety depth. I know that last week I talked about Quandre Diggs. I would love that reunion. Unfortunately, he just re-signed with the Titans, so there goes that dream. But I do think they need another body. I will be very curious to see what names are out there after camp, after cutdown day, when, there'll be tons of veterans that are just looking for a place to play. So I imagine this will be a post-camp thing, and they'll use the rest of camp to figure out what they have internally.
Yeah, it feels a little bit like the wide receiver situation last year through camp and looking at all these guys, and it's like, they're what we're looking for. And then cut day arrived, and surprisingly, Tim Patrick was let go by Denver, and then Allen Robinson they brought in, and that ended up being a decent solution. There should be some guys like that who will probably be called upon when the time arrives.
Absolutely. And then the other one, this one is a little bit more significant and just as unfortunate, but Ennis Rakestraw Jr., he is going to be out, quote unquote, a while per Dan Campbell with a shoulder injury, that shoulder being on the same side that he had the pec chest contusion at the start of camp. And by a while, I'm inferring that means probably a good chunk of the regular season. Maybe not quite a season ender, but It might be a while before we see Ennis Rakestraw again. And for a guy that has been dealing with injuries pretty much his entire NFL career so far, and he had injury issues in college as well, this is very quickly turning into another case where a Lions top 100 pick is just dealing with injuries way too much and misses way too many valuable reps in camp to get the development that he needs.
Yeah, especially in his career, that's the big concern. We came into camp really being excited about Raw and what he could provide, and by all accounts, seemed like he had had a good offseason. People were hyped up, and it was a big opportunity for him. And so, again, it's not great for the team, but it's more hurting the team's depth rather than their starting roles. We assumed that it would be Reed and carry on the outside corners, and then Robertson in the nickel. So it doesn't really change that picture, but it's a bigger deal for Rakestraw himself because he really did need to have a good camp and get on track and finally get some pro reps. I mean, he barely played last season, and I don't think he's probably out for the year based on the way Campbell phrased that, but it's going to be tough to come back probably sometime in the middle of the season without having had a full preseason, without having had many regular season reps. Like, I just don't know how familiar the Lions will be with Rakestraw's game, how willing they will be to give him those reps once you're in the heat of the season. Obviously, if there is an injury apocalypse like last year, then okay, he's a warm body, throw him out there. But if the Lions are decently situated at corner, I just don't really know how big of a factor he'll be this year because this was a really crucial part of the season that he'll be missing.
Yeah, the saving grace for him is that corner is probably one of the most frequently injured position groups in the league. Maybe running back is probably the only one that challenges. Like, corners go down all the time. Again, we saw that last year. Carlton Davis, Terry and Arnold, Rakestraw himself, and Amik as well. Like, everyone was getting hurt, and it was more than just the Lions having bad luck. Like, corners do just get banged up a little bit. It's a very physically demanding position, so I would not be shocked if Rakestraw comes back halfway through the year. There is a good chance that he's going to be called upon at some point in some capacity. But like you said, it's similar to the Dan Jackson thing, where it sucks for the player a little bit more than the team. However, it just makes the depth look a little bit shakier. Obviously, like we'll talk about Rocky Sin in a little bit because he's had a really good camp so far. Maddox, who is in line to start or be the third safety, can also play corner. Like, he's done that a ton in his career. So there are guys, but they're veterans, right, who aren't going to be long-term solutions, and Rakestraw had the potential to be a long-term solution. So unfortunate on that front. Another note on personnel, we did mention the very weird Alex Anzalone contract situation that was going on last week, and it got resolved in an equally weird and confusing way. The Lions give Anzalone $250,000 extra guaranteed, with incentives that can earn him an additional $750,000 on top of that, so potential to earn an extra $1 million this year. Don't think that is what Anzalone was looking for, but seems like Detroit is just giving him a small bump to be like, all right, just like be quiet, go play, and we'll revisit this after the season.
Yeah, it was a weird kind of thing because they looked at this and were like, oh, we solved the problem. And it's like, not really. That wasn't what the issue necessarily was. It was more he wanted more term, more money than this. So it's just kind of the Band-Aid on a broken bone sort of thing. Like, the underlying issue is still there, but now it gets him presumably on the field and through this season, so we'll see what happens after that. They needed to remove the distraction, and I guess this doesn't, but doesn't really solve the tension between the team and the player.
Yeah, like, Anzalone is still set to be a free agent after this season, so kick the can down the road, deal with it later. It's a very weird spot because, like we talked about, we understand why the Lions would be hesitant to hand out another big extension, especially to a player of Anzalone's age, when they have other younger guys that need extensions. At the same time, the Lions the way that they operate in this era, they will take care of their own. And Ancelotti's been a good soldier for them. He's been through the hard times with them at the start of this rebuild. So if he continues to ball out, he will get rewarded for his loyalty and for like the work he's done on the field. It's just going to be, I don't think it's going to be quite as lucrative as he's hoping for. I think he'll probably have to decide, does he want the security and term in Detroit to keep playing for a Super Bowl contending team, or does he want to truly chase the bag for the last time in his career somewhere else?
At the very least, we should hopefully not have to talk about a contract with Anzalone during the season, and then we'll tackle it again next offseason. So for me, that's the biggest plus of this.
Yeah, hopefully. And I mean, there's no way that Anzalone would have agreed to it without like the understanding that, okay, we'll revisit it later. So do have to mention that. Still weird, but like you said, at least it's over with. Then some more injury news, this time at offensive tackle. Taylor Decker is back. He's working back in individual drills. He's getting back up to speed. He had that cleanup shoulder procedure, and this was the timeline that was always outlined for him, but it is good and reassuring to know that he's sticking to that timeline and that he is getting back on the field, because Dan Skipper, the third offensive tackle, he picked up an injury in the Hall of Fame game, and he's been walking around in a boot, so he's going to be out for a couple of weeks here in camp. He'll be fine for the regular season, but in the meantime, with that, the Lions' tackle depth is being tested. Guys like Jamarco Jones is also injured after the Hall of Fame game, and he was repping with the second team, so the Lions' tackle depth is really being tested here. We had Giovanni Manu repping with the ones the other day, which we'll talk about Giovanni Manu and his development. Regardless of how good he's doing, that's not a situation that he should be in right now, going against Marcus Davenport in practice. Like that's not going to go well for anyone. So hopefully Decker can get up to speed. Hopefully Skipper is going to be okay. Hopefully Jamarco Jones is okay too, because very quickly Giovanni Manu could become a little too important for this year.
Yeah, I will say it was nice to at least see a little bit of Giovanni Manu on the Hall of Fame game. And even if it's not ideal, some of those reps with ones and twos in practice will go a long way for the development. At least on what he's got to improve on. So there's something there. As long as Skipper and Decker are ready for the regular season, then it isn't too much cause for alarm. The Lions are generally very cautious with injuries in training camp. We know sort of this routine by now, so I'm not super concerned about those.
Yeah, exactly. So with that, we're going to talk about the way we'll structure this is we'll do kind of a camp recap, and then we'll recap the Hall of Fame game that happened last week. So to start off with, the biggest question mark on the roster coming into training camp was who was going to be the starting center. We had talked about the fact that it was between Graham Glasgow and Tate Ratledge, and just like 2 days after we uploaded that episode, it's kind of became clear that Graham is going to be the starting center. Tate will be the starting right guard. Whether or not they continue to cross-train him, I'm not sure if they're going to. I kind of hope they do, but that might be more of a long-term thing on training Tate, and they might just keep a designated backup center this season and allow Tate to just develop at right guard where he's a lot more NFL ready. So with that development, how do we feel about the interior at this point in time?
I said on the previous show that I liked that they were giving Ratledge reps at center, at least to start. Doesn't seem like that lasted a super long amount of time, but I'd keep rotating him in. It always did seem like to me at the end of the day that Glasgow would be the center this year, that Ratledge may become the center in a future year, but it's just a really hard leap to go from having never played center to playing it as a rookie in the NFL. Like, it's something that he could do if you need him to, but when you have a player in Glasgow who's done it at the NFL level at a decent caliber in his career, it just, for a team like the Lions with their aspirations, it just makes a lot of sense to let Glasgow do that, let Ratledge learn about the NFL at his position of expertise, and then maybe down the road you move him to center, and after he has enough time to learn the offense and all the line calls and all that kind of stuff. So this seemed like the most likely option. I was maybe a little surprised they got here this quickly, but at the end of the day, not stunned. And we'll see how it goes. I mean, the early buzz on Ratledge and Mahogany's been solid in camp, and we know what Glasgow can do. It's not an exceptional, probably not going to have multiple Pro Bowl, All-Pro type guys in the interior, but it doesn't seem like it should be terrible. So we'll see how it develops. And like I said in the previous show, it's probably going to be an interior that will improve as the season goes along, as the younger players get more reps. So that's just my baseline expectation now.
Yeah, and I think the other thing to note is Graham was going to be involved with the calls at the line and designated protections and all that, and taking on some of those center responsibilities anyways. And so he kind of voiced that he would be more comfortable if he was just the center instead of having to do two jobs, like doing it from the guard spot instead. So it just works out for all parties involved. Again, Glasgow has talked about how he wasn't fully comfortable on the left, and he's been okay in spot starts over the last few seasons with when Ragnar would miss time with injury. I do believe that he'll obviously be better than that with a full camp to prepare and just playing center like as the designated center instead of spot start duty. So I fully expect him to be a perfectly average center.
Sure, I don't disagree with that.
Yep. Other camp notes, Aiden Hutchinson has been absolutely just lighting the world on fire, not even just against Dan Skipper, but against Penei Sewell as well, which is hard to do. So any reservations that the leg might not be 100%, those have got to be mostly gone, so that's really reassuring. Brian Branch has been another guy getting a ton of buzz, which is good because, he has to play up to the expectations he established in the first year and a half of his career rather than what we saw down the stretch last season. And then an interesting note that I thought, or that I wanted to bring up was Sam Laporta has put a big emphasis on his blocking over the offseason, and it seems like he has taken a step in that regard. He's also obviously still a fantastic receiver. I'm starting to wonder if Sam Laporta can be a top three all around tight end. Obviously the Iowa guys have that blocking pedigree. Laporta and Hawkinson before him kind of break away from that a little bit, but if Laporta could take a step with his blocking, I think his ceiling might be even higher than we hoped after his rookie year.
It would sure be nice to see it in games. I don't put too much stock into camp hype. Like, obviously, NFL camp hype is a lot more verifiable than college football camp hype, where mostly the practices are behind closed doors and they are only saying good things. We have neutral observers in NFL camp, but there's still just a difference between the ferocity of regular season games and what you do in camp. But it's nice that he seems to be putting in work to improve in that aspect, and I'm excited to see if it comes along this season. I mean, his ranking in tight ends around the league is already going to be pretty high because of the receiving abilities, but if he can come around a little bit more as a blocker, that it certainly helps, and it allows you to do a few different things with him too. So, good indication so far, but I want to see it in practice.
Yep, of course. And other notes, Tyleek has been very good in run defense, which is what we expected. Still kind of meh as a pass rusher. Again, like we expected. Rockison, who I mentioned earlier, has been one of the biggest camp risers so far. Dan Campbell's really praised his physicality. And now with the injury to Dan Jackson, it seems like Yasin is going to get some safety work as well. So maybe you would just enter, the Lions very well might just end up in a world where Maddox and Ruckison are the backup safeties that can also play corner in a pinch. It's kind of the same philosophy as the interior O-line. It's like cross-training these guys, it wouldn't be the worst thing to just have depth DBs that you could plug and play wherever you need them.
I said this previously on the last show and in some of the offseason ones, but the Maddox and Rockison signings kind of went under the radar a little bit to me, just in terms of how potentially impactful they are. The Lions' depth was tested heavily last year. We've seen how it has gone in past years with Kendall Vildor and Khalil Dorsey only played a few snaps last year before the injury, but they were not great snaps, that Buffalo game most notably. So it's important to have depth at those positions. And these are guys that are just another kind of cut above what you typically expect when we're talking about signing depth at those positions. Like Avonte Maddox was a starter in the Super Bowl not that long ago. Rocky Sin was a guy I remember looking at when the Lions were in the market for a corner a couple off seasons ago. He was a name on those boards, and he signed with Baltimore, signed with San Francisco. Play kind of trailed off, but he was a really solid player back with the Colts and the Raiders, and is still not really that old. So when you have guys that have played meaningful snaps on good teams not that long ago, that's a better caliber of guy. That's a guy I feel more comfortable than a Kindle Vildor. And to hear them having a good camp is really nice to me. And I feel more reassured. You can stomach the Rakestraw loss. You can stomach Dan Jackson's loss a little bit more because you signed these guys. And they didn't generate a ton of headlines when they were signed, but they could end up being really important pieces for this season.
Yeah, and like I mentioned, corners go down all the time, so very good chance you will need to rely on these guys in some capacity. And then this kind of ties into the Hall of Fame game, but one of the most talked about players from training camp has been wide receiver Isaac TeSlaa. And oh my lord, I don't know how much you've been looking online, Alex. The TeSlaa hype is getting completely out of control, and people really need to calm down with it.
Yeah, it was always kind of foreseeable in the sense that Lions fans and people from the state of Michigan generally, we're fairly tribal. We have a large soft spot for hometown guys. Obviously, various ones over the years in the different leagues, but it means something to be from Michigan and play for one of the teams. It's kind of the storybook component, and so everything we know about TeSlaa and the personalized childhood jersey that he then took to the interview, that story's been told already 50 times, and eventually it's going to be the new Stafford and Kershaw of the Lions. But all of that lore just made it so that if this guy really comes through in the NFL, there are going to be TeSlaa jerseys everywhere. I mean, he is going to be just beloved by the fans. And so it's just starting, right? The first clips we see, oh, nice catch here. Oh, good sort of diving grab over a DB in this one like heavily edited 40-second video that the Lions put out on social media, and everyone's like, "Oh my God, it's happening!" And then he goes into the Hall of Fame game. He only had 2 catches in that game, but they were both fairly long catches, 46 yards between the two of them, and it looked credible to me. I mean, I said in the last show, I wanted to know where TeSlaa was at, right? When we talk about developmental picks, there's a wide range of what it means to be developmental. And so far, I think we've seen a pretty high floor in terms of developmental. He's been playing with the twos and succeeding with the twos, and that's not nothing. Like, this is not seemingly a guy like Giovanni Manu who has to be in the garage for at least a full season. Like, there are questions with TeSlaa and how sharp he is, how much polish he has. He got bumped off a route in the Hall of Fame game that really kind of showed how he needs to add muscle and get a little more physical. But he's certainly already looking like a guy that could play in an NFL regular season game, a few snaps here and there, and come down with a couple catches and be somewhat viable. And that's a good starting spot. And the talent, you certainly see it. Even in those highlights, which we always got to caution, you see it. The vision is there for me with this pick.
Yeah, so and another thing is he is a wicked blocker, like underratedly, but we know how much the Lions value blocking from their wide receivers. Like Amon-Ra St. Brown, for example, he's one of the best blocking wide receivers. And that's why the Lions loved him so much coming out of USC. And TeSlaa cut from the same cloth. I don't know if you saw the Inside the Den, like behind the scenes of the draft, but one of the things that Brad Holmes talked about when he was making the pick is the Senior Bowl highlights, and not for like at the Senior Bowl, TeSlaa's blocking really showed up on tape, and they put together some of those blocking highlights, which, by the way, shout out the Lions video team for hunting down those blocking highlights of TeSlaa from the Senior Bowl, because it was really fun to watch. So that's another positive sign for TeSlaa, that they'll trust him on early downs as well. This is a question that I saw, I think it was the Predator Detroit guys were postulating that Tesla's role might be a little bit more immediate than we are expecting. Do we think, like, if we had to put a percent on it, what percent chance do you think that Tesla could overtake Tim Patrick by the end of the year?
Uh, oh, this is a tricky one. I don't know, like 20% maybe? Like, I don't think it's super high because Patrick has so many years of experience and familiarity with the offense. He's had a full year to gel with these guys. His chemistry with Goff could be even better. But I will acknowledge that Patrick has had some interesting quotes during training camp about how tough Lions training camp is and how different it is than other teams' training camps, which did kind of catch my eye. And again, Tesla's coming from Arkansas. He played in the SEC. Like, the developmental or not, there is enough of a starting point that in theory with rapid maturation, I could see it happening. But veterans are veterans in the NFL for a reason. And I think they're just comfortable with Patrick. Wouldn't put the odds super high.
Yeah, I guess it's more to show that Tesla's further along for a developmental pick than some of these other guys because he played in the SEC. Like,
Yeah.
we compare it to the Manu situation. Well, Manu was playing in Canada. All right, like
Yeah.
that is not
and
NFL caliber.
Project Martin was not in a high level. He was Western Kentucky, right? So
Yeah.
that was that's another couple town in the FBS. So from that standpoint, Tesla is starting from a better point, but it will still take considerable development, I think, for him to get a starting role on this team.
Yeah, like the distinction is he clearly has the NFL size and physical traits, and honestly hands too. Like, his hands are very good. He catches pretty much everything in his radius, but it's just the consistency with the route running. It's learning how to beat press more effectively because he didn't really have to do that at Arkansas. He played a lot in the slot and on the limited reps he did get. So being able to deal with the press at the line is going to be a big thing for him. It really just depends how quickly he develops, but I might be willing to go a little higher, like 25, 30 would be pushing it, but I think it's tricky, right? Because I simultaneously am starting to buy into Tesla as a prospect while also still being very wary of how much draft capital they invested in him. So it's this weird line to walk where it's like he has kind of a lot to live up to in terms of investment. However, I see what the Lions saw in him at this point, and I'm willing to buy in that there's optimism for him to be your starting X for a long time.
There's a little bit of a sort of cognitive bias going on where because you invested so much in him, you're watching him more with more focus than you would otherwise, and wanting to see more signs that the amount you invested is being validated. So you do have to be careful of that a little bit. But
yeah, the peaks and valleys with his assessment is going to be insane.
Yeah. But for where we're at, I think, and what the thoughts were coming out of the draft, I don't think you can be too disappointed where things are right now. It's coming along probably better than I even anticipated. So we'll see if he can keep building on that.
And getting into the Hall of Fame game, the two catches he did have were both crossing routes, which is all well and good. I think that's the next thing I want to see for the rest of it. Like, we'll talk about what we want to see in Friday's game in a little bit, but for Tesla specifically, I want to see him have a larger diversity of routes. Because if he could run a crossing route, great. That's great. If you've got that in your bag, you will get a couple of catches this year in the regular season. But that's the first sign of the maturation, is just show me that you can do more than one thing. So in the Hall of Fame game, we can't ignore this topic because this was the biggest story coming out of that game. Quarterbacks. Because the quarterback play was downright abysmal. Kyle Allen, after having, by all accounts, a decent camp so far, absolutely horrible in the first half of the Hall of Fame game. Multiple interceptions, one of which was a 3rd and 8 or 9, and he locks onto his first read, Tom Kennedy, and he commits the biggest sin a quarterback can commit. He throws the out route late and behind, and it was almost a pick six. And the second interception, he tries to give TeSlaa a shot. TeSlaa gets bumped off the route. The ball is thrown too far anyways. Safety just falls under it for an easy interception. What, like, before we get to Hendon Hooker, who we also have to criticize, how do we feel about Kyle Allen right now?
It doesn't really change my assessment. I did not feel coming into this year that he is a viable quarterback. Should Goff go down for any amount of time. He was 9 of 14, 91 yards, but the 2 interceptions, especially that first one, was so jarring that I get you have to have 2 quarterbacks to play in the preseason, but I am in agreement with a point Colton Pouncey made in his piece today in The Athletic, which was looking at the roster camp battles, and I want to see Hooker get the time with the twos from here on out in the preseason. Like I don't need to see any more Kyle Allen. We know what this is. Hooker at least has some potential to, I guess, be better than that, maybe. Like, it was hard for me watching Hooker's half of the game because he was playing with the threes. There was, like, no protection, and it's just like, this is kind of unserious to me. I want to see him play with the twos, start the game, and let him get those reps. We don't need to see any more of Kyle Allen. Like, he can do it in practice. The games need to be given to Hendon Hooker to start them, get the most meaningful parts of those games, then go to Kyle Allen once we've seen plenty from Hooker.
Honestly, I even in practice, like I've never understood this alternating between the twos and threes. Like Hooker needs the development, and also he is your backup quarterback. He's better than Kyle Allen. Like I don't understand why we're doing this whole like playing all these games with Hooker where he's sometimes with the twos, sometimes with the threes. It's really limiting his ability to develop chemistry with the twos and with some of these guys. And then again, you're in the second half of the Hall of Fame game. Hooker only, I think he threw 6 passes or something in the entire second half.
Yeah.
And had like 11 true dropbacks. The Lions just decided they wanted to run the ball for the second half. I guess they were just fed up with how that game was going and wanted to get out of there. But it's a similar thing with like Manu at tackle. Like I give Hooker 3 quarters. Like why we don't even have to limit this to a half. Give him 3 quarters. Give Manu 3 quarters. Like these guys that need the reps. Broderick Martin, give him 3 quarters. Why not? Like we know what some of these veterans are, and I just don't agree with the whole. Like I understand they want to make it a battle. However, you can like if he's give him the chance to fail. If that makes sense. Like give Hooker the run with the twos, and if he's awful, then you can pull him and put him with the threes for a day to just kind of have him reset and refocus. But I don't like the way that they just defaulted to this rotation.
Completely agree. Six pass attempts in a preseason game for a guy that really needs to start getting some snaps. It's just a waste of everyone's time. We don't need to see more Kyle Allen. Let Hooker start Friday's game and let him sling it. For better or for worse, I want to see him actually play with more competent players and see what he can do. So that's my focus going forward. Like that was enough Kyle Allen for this preseason when it comes to the early portion of the game snaps at least.
Yeah, and now to be fair, in criticizing Hooker as well, because we did criticize Kyle Allen, so we should I will offer my criticism of Hooker as well. He looked exactly like he did last preseason, which is he was way too antsy and eager to scramble. He wasn't throwing with anticipation. He waits till guys are open. He doesn't throw them open. Like he needs to start being able to anticipate windows a little bit better. I will give him credit, or I will give him a pass for the interception at the end of the game where he just threw it up to Dominic Lovett, and Lovett caught it and then had the ball ripped out of his hands. So it goes down as an interception in air quotes, but Lovett just got the ball ripped out of his hands by the defensive player there. And it was honestly not that bad of a ball, but it was just kind of symbolic of how that entire game went for the Lions. But the good news is Hooker is starting on Friday. So I want to see at least 15, 20 pass attempts. Like, I don't need to see however many Craig Reynolds runs in the first half again. Like, Sione Vaki can get some runs, sure, and I'm excited to see that, but we need to see Hooker slinging it a little bit more. Another guy.
Speaking of, I wanna get one thing on the record here real quick. I know Faki's been banged up and he's working his way back and everything, but like too much Craig Reynolds in the Hall of Fame game. Not because he's bad, but like he's too important to be wasting on the Hall of Fame game. Like get someone else from the practice squad out there, because that's a little alarming to me.
Yeah, I was joking like with someone that they would have to settle for 15 Justin Jackson rush attempts in this game. The final rushing stats in this game, Craig Reynolds had 10 attempts on the ground. And Jabari Small had 11. That's fine. Jabari Small can take 11 carries, and Justin Jackson didn't even get time. Like, Sione Vaki, I want to see in the first quarter and a bit of this Hall of Fame game. Like, I would give Sione Vaki 10 rushes, sure, because I want to see what he's got, and he missed the Hall of Fame game. He needs to get up to speed. He needs developmental reps as well. Yeah, Craig Reynolds, that was very bizarre. Although it could have been worse. Like, the Chargers started Amari and Hampton in that game. So, it could be worse.
Yeah, that was a very strange decision by the Chargers. With fire a little bit, but they came out unscathed at least.
Yeah, I mean, Rockison laid a big hit on Hampton on that first drive, and then Jim Harbaugh was like, "Okay, that's enough. I don't need to see any more of this." Another guy who performed pretty adamantly in that preseason game, which cannot be said for a lot of guys, but rookie defensive end Ahmad Hassanin, he was very solid against the run and showed a little bit more ability to like string together pass rush moves when pinning his ears back than I was expecting. Almost got Trey Lance on the ground in the first quarter, but I think he like had the best PFF grade of any Lions player in that game. So something to monitor with the injury to Josh Paschal, who's probably going to miss the first couple weeks of the regular season, it seems like at this point. Hassanin might be like edge 3 or 4 to start the year. So
at this point, unfortunately, but good news for him, he's going to get some opportunities, and so far he's made the most of them. Good buzz in camp. Seemed to get good reviews for this game. I didn't scrutinize the tape enough to really follow that. I saw some of the clips that were going around. We have our issues with PFF, but I'll trust them on this one because I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole of charting the Hall of Fame game. So I'd like to see more of Hassanin in this upcoming preseason game against the Falcons. Keep getting him some reps because those are going to be pretty important for a rookie who may very well have to see the field early in the NFL regular season. And at least he's sending along good vibes at this point in time.
Yeah, I like watching him talk. What a guy. Like, I really want him to work out because what a story this would be. He's so, like, just grateful for everything, like, super humble. Love to see that Hutch has been taking him under his wing and trying to show him some stuff. Apparently, Hassanin's been trying to emulate the spin move a little bit, which, I mean, love to see that. So, yeah, you're going to see a ton of him in preseason, and if he gets even a sack in these games, everyone on Twitter is going to lose their minds because, again, it's similar to Tesla. Like, people want to root for this guy.
Right.
Yeah.
Very, very compelling story. No question about it.
And then last note I have is just how chaotic of a game linebacker Grant Stewart had. And where, for those who missed the game, Grant Stewart, notably a linebacker, was returning kicks to start the game and promptly butt fumbled on the first one. He got, like, it was not a true butt fumble. He got tripped into his own guy's butt, but he did fumble. And so that was a great way to start the game. And then he also had another just absolutely everything is happening play where he was on a blitz and he got kind of chop blocked and did a somersault over the offensive player, got back up, and then got the sack. This guy just, it was just a very chaotic game. Gonna be a big piece on special teams. the linebackers were kind of just bad in that Hall of Fame game, but eh. I just wanted to make note of that because this I just see this guy's hair flopping around on every single snap, it seems like.
We should also note that it was just a really sloppy game for the special teams. Like
Yeah,
beyond the Stewart fumble, we also had the muff punt. That was by Keeney James, and
that was
that
horrible.
really those in the real bad, completely indecisive, misjudged it, freaked out when the ball arrived. Lions in total have 5 turnovers in the game. The score is 34-7, but the yardage was 261 to 197. Chargers had scoring drives of 28, 6, and 0 yards. So,
Yep.
it was a closer game in theory than the score indicated, but at the same time, the Lions did it to themselves. They played very poorly and got the result they deserved, I guess. One final thing we should mention is Dominic Lovett.
Yep.
Did you have some takes on him? He had 5 receptions, 9 targets. There was a lot of him in this game.
So he was super active. I thought when he got the ball in his hands, he showed some nice ability after the catch. He had that one where him and Tesla, someone ran the wrong route, but Lovett gets the ball and he kind of spins out from traffic and is able to get a couple extra yards. At the same time, also had a completely inexcusable drop on the first drive where Kyle Allen delivered actually a just absolute strike through the middle, through the teeth of the defense, and Lovett dropped it. And then the play at the end that I mentioned, Hooker's interception, where Lovett had a chance at the ball and he just got out muscled and it got ripped away from him. So I like what he brings in open field. I like his agility and ability to make guys miss. He needs to just get more consistent with his hands.
Yeah, it was. We talk about not getting to see enough of Hooker. We got to see a lot of Lovett, and it was up and down for me, as you noted. A lot of positive, negative events. He's in that interesting conversation about like, are they going to keep a 6th wide receiver? And we know that Tesla's in, Raymond's in. You have the 3 starters, so he's the one on the bubble, and he feels like a guy that is really going to need some strong and steadier performances in the coming preseason games. Like, you do not want to see any more drops in these preseason games. Want to see just consistency, catch the ball when it arrives, you know, make a few guys miss, don't get out muscled by the DBs when the ball comes, like clean it up a little bit. And in terms of all the guys on the team, one of the more interesting ones for these coming preseason games.
Yeah, like as you mentioned, he's on the bubble, and it's one of these spots where if he earns it, the Lions will give it to him. But if he isn't consistent or he keeps having issues with drops or this, that, or the other, then they'll throw him on the practice squad. Simple as that. Like I think he will be a Lion. However, I he has to prove that he belongs on the 53-man roster, and it's an uphill battle. Like, full credit to him. Like, he is going to work his tail off, and he's probably going to make it a difficult conversation. But these are the things that'll make it go from a very hard conversation to, okay, who do we have to cut in order to keep you here?
Yeah, it's always a math game. As we mentioned, special teams are a big part of that, but he's definitely someone to watch in these upcoming preseason games. I mean, my biggest takeaway from the Hall of Fame game is they just didn't seem really ready to play. I don't put a lot of stock in preseason. The one time I do is Matt Patricia. Preseasons were really bad. Like, even you say it doesn't really matter, but like they were getting blown out in some of those preseason games, like too consistently, a lot of mistakes, and it was a bad harbinger. This felt like a Matt Patricia preseason game. Now, thankfully, there's an explanation for that. It was barely into training, so I'm looking for much crisper performance from the guys in this coming week from Friday night against Atlanta.
So you're telling me that I'm not allowed to judge the Lions coordinators based on the results of that Hall of Fame game?
Yeah, Johnny Morton is going to get a pass if he has to coordinate any games with Kyle Allen as a starting quarterback in the regular season.
Yeah, I see. It's funny because 90% of the people who were saying stuff about the Lions coordinators, it was all tongue-in-cheek. Like, it was complete sarcasm. But there was a few people that were like unironically trying to draw conclusions about the Lions coaching staff based on the results of this game. Like, reevaluate the way that you like. I understand we want to be divisive and talk about things in very polarizing ways, but relax, people. Relax. So,
I mean, I people have nothing to do. It's the summer.
yeah.
We're just waiting for any news. It was the only one. I get it. And when you get blown out in the only game on TV for for a week until the rest of the preseason games, you deserve to be dunked on a little bit. Just don't take it too seriously.
And to be fair, if I was a Bears fan watching some of those Caleb Williams training camp clips, I would want to, I would want to redirect that anger a little bit as well. So, not to throw, again, it's training camp. Don't read too much into it. But with that being said, let's move on here to this preseason game against the Falcons. Now, we've kind of been talking about what we want to see throughout this episode, but just to recap, obviously, more Hendon Hooker and better play from Hendon Hooker, more decisiveness with the football, more anticipation on his throws. I just want to see him be willing to throw it more. If he throws the ball 30 times and all of those throws are terrible, at least you have 30 more throws on tape. The stuff that we got in the Hall of Fame game was just absolutely useless. It was just checkdowns and nothing, and trying to scramble, which it's not going to work every single play. I'm interested to see Vaki's development and see him get some more run, and I talked about wanting to see more from Tesla. I also am interested to see some of the other edge guys like Lin and Ukwu, just see if they can provide anything. We know that the Lions are at least exploring the possibility of bringing in another edge, whether it be Zadarius Smith or they spoke to Matthew Judon. Same thing as the safety conversation. This feels like a post-camp thing where they're just going to bring in a couple more bodies. However, the young guys that are here have a chance to do something.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to watching it with a little more scrutiny. I was on vacation during the Hall of Fame game as well, so it was just kind of casual viewing. This I'll get to look a little bit more at. Another week in training camp, guys should be a little sharper. Certainly that Nate Lynn, I didn't get to really follow him too closely in that first game, but be someone I am watching. Do we know what Atlanta's plan for the game is? Like, is Penix going to play at all, or they still have Cousins, right?
So, yeah, and neither of them are playing.
Okay, so to be, according to this depth chart, Easton Stick will be the starter, I guess. He's listed.
How many quarterbacks
do
they have? Do they have 4?
They have Emory Jones.
Interesting. I'm not gonna lie, I do not know who that is.
He played at a few different schools in college. He played at Florida, and then I guess he finished, according to this, at ASU in Cincinnati. But he is not particularly good. So
also,
I would assume Easton Stick will get a lot of the work.
And we're going to get to see some former Lions here. We got 3 former Lions at receiver. Jamal Agnew, DJ Chark, Kaderl Hodge. Oh, and Dylan Drummond had a stint on the practice squad or in training camp, I think, at one point too, didn't he?
I remember the last name Drummond. I don't remember what his first name was, but he was a wide receiver, I think.
I'm looking this up because I think that might be a deep.
It has to. Wasn't he from EMU maybe?
Let's
my
find
memory.
out. Yep, Eastern Michigan. I want to say, did he ever make the line? I don't think he made the Lions. Did he play with the practice squad though?
He was elevated to the active roster week 5 of 2023.
Look at that. There's your deep cut for the day. Dylan Drummond, Lions legend, gonna be in this preseason game. So, yeah, aside from that, Alex, do you have any concluding thoughts before we wrap up for the week?
Training camp is always a grind. August, you're just trying to plow through, hope for few injuries. The Reichstraw one sucks. Jackson, more for him. Otherwise, it's been more scratches and bruises than anything serious, so hopefully we just stay that way. Hope for a little entertainment from this upcoming preseason game that we did not get from the Hall of Fame game. But otherwise, we're just counting down the days to the regular season. So by the time we talk next week, things will be better because we'll be a week closer to the regular season.
Exactly. So that's going to be it for this week's episode of the Payne and Drain Show. If you made it this far, make sure to leave us a review. If you're on YouTube, make sure you like and subscribe. You can find us on Twitter. You can find me at ZachPayne41, Alex at Alex_Drain, the show at Payne and Drain. So make sure you go follow us over there. And again, follow the show, all of that. We will see you guys next week for another preseason recap and just checking in with how training camp is going. It'll be very similar to this week's episode for the next few weeks as we, like Alex said, get closer to the season. So thank you for watching or listening, and we'll see you guys next time. Cheers.